Hello, everyone. Good evening. Good evening. Thank you so much for tuning in to tonight's episode. I am Noelle Figueroa, and this is season 2, episode 21 of the P.W.P sessions. That's the Poets with Purpose sessions. Thank you so much for joining in tonight. Tonight's guest is a fellow poet, Tom Cintula, and we're gonna get into a brief introduction before we dive into the conversation. So those of you that are not already familiar with this podcast, the P.W.P sessions or the Poets with Purpose sessions is a podcast that I created where I conduct interviews with new or established authors of poetry. And in addition, rappers or MCs. I feature a performance of their work and a Q&A session at the end of the interview. I'm your host, Noelle Figueroa, also known as The Poet, also known as The Anointed Pen. I am a poet, author, blogger, workshop facilitator, and event host, and I am the creator of the P.W.P sessions. Tonight's guest is Tom Cintula, and this is his bio. Tom Cintula is an independent author and writer who was born, raised, and currently resides in Staten Island, New York. He is a graduate of the College of Staten Island with dual bachelor's degrees in sociology, anthropology, and philosophy. His previous publishing efforts include poetry collections such as Sonnet Sphere and Sirius. His previous writing credits include contributions for the Borgen Project, Game 7 Sports Club, and All Access MMA. Now, without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, I introduce Mr. Tom Cintula. Hey, good evening, Tom. How you doing?
Thank you all for having me here tonight. It's great to be here.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you for being my guest. Now, I'm going to start off with a basic question that I ask all my guests. Who is Tom Cintula? How would you describe yourself or define yourself?
I describe myself as someone who is creative, articulate, funny, serious, sometimes funny while being serious, serious while being funny. Sometimes it's hard for me to describe myself because sometimes I'm always living in my head and I try to find the real answers inside there because I've always been advised to find what's true inside of you. So there's a series of things that I may or may not have that's officially the concrete answer you may be looking for. I have a series of things: funny, serious, smart, a little clumsy, a little over excited, maybe slightly inattentive, always on, slightly off.
All right, excellent, excellent. Now, how did you get your start in poetry? What was the turning point that motivated you to get into poetry for yourself?
I went into a creative writing class with Professor Patricia Smith de Silva at the College of Staten Island. Creative writing was one of the classes I had taken, and I was learning about poetry in a book written by David Starkey, Creative Writing, and it had all sorts of forms of poetry that I can learn to write in. And mostly I was writing prose to myself, just working on prose and writing short stories to myself and really just practicing the craft on my own. It wasn't until during the pandemic of COVID-19 that I thought I'll practice poetry. I was kind of apprehensive about it. I figured I'd give it a shot, and if it's kind of bad, I'll just continue to work on it. I don't expect it to be any good at first, but I'll just see what I can do. And it was not that bad. But when I looked at, I would write a few poems here and there, and I wrote maybe over 100. And when I looked back and saw all of them, I was like, wow, this is really bad. This is one of the worst things I've ever written. I've written some junkers in the past that I didn't put out, but I just practiced. I took the time to practice, and when I decided to make certain changes in my life, leaving a job I didn't like and looking for another one that would have some purpose, I actually took that time to interview for positions that I wanted to have. And during that time, write poetry during the 2021 holiday season. I wrote poetry, namely sonnets, because I wanted to put out a sonnet book. And I came up with the idea of Sonnet Sphere because it sounded pretty cool. So I'll just write a sonnet book. I'll practice my sonnets, which I did anyway during the COVID pandemic. I'll just make edits. And I liked what I wrote during that time from December 2021 to March 28, 2022. I worked on it relentlessly, and on the 28th of March, I put out Sonnet Sphere last year from Ex Libris Publishing. And I decided, I'll go to some open mics and I'll plug the book there and go on a tour. I'll go on a tour over Staten Island, over the New York City metro area, Jersey, and everywhere in the Northeast region.
Okay, excellent, excellent. And congratulations on that project. Now, is that the one, is that a collection that was just recently released?
That was a collection that was released last year. The second collection was Sirius, released in August of last year on the 25th. And this year on May 14th, Anathematic Darkness was released about over a month ago. That's the most recent release. That's from Immortalize. The two books, the first two collections are from Ex Libris. The third one is from Immortalize Publishing in Adelaide, Australia.
Yeah, awesome, awesome. Congratulations on that release. That's excellent. Now, as far as that project, your most recent project, what is the subject matter of those poems that you put together?
I had a lot of personal strife and demons, and had a hard time relating with other people. Like, the best thing I knew I could do best is write. I didn't really do it a whole lot because I always felt I need to get out more and explore the world. You could read and write and confine yourself and stay quarantined for as long as you can. COVID or no COVID, you still have to face what's out there, even if you don't want to. It's just something I've been pushed to do as a little boy, and I continue to do it. I mean, even if whether you have a job you don't like, or whether you just need to practice, relating to other people, whether you're reading poetry or you just want to meet somebody, anybody, friends, family, old family members you haven't seen in a while, anybody in general, just going out there. It's not always easy. There are times where I get told, you got to slow down a bit, but it's like so much more exploring to do. Just being able to go in there and talk about my feelings that I had written about, that I had no idea how to express except through writing. And that's when I started to put all the demons on paper and put it out. Like, this is what I went through. I didn't really know how else to do it. I thought maybe acting would help me. It did not. I think I had some ability to do that, but it didn't feel like it was the right thing for me. It was something I experimented with. It was something I'm appreciative of as far as the experience goes, but writing really was the one thing that was calling for me to come and help myself nurture that ability. And that's what it's like something I should have done a long time ago. Even though as a kid I wrote some stories, even in front of class, where I would read it in front of them, but I just didn't know exactly if that was my cup of tea. I didn't really know what my cup of tea is. I knew I could write, but I didn't know what I really wanted to do. So that was something I had to really take the time and think about. It's like I ignored that gift altogether. I had no idea what I could do. So it's like you can go somewhere and ask somebody, what is it that I can really do? They can't really answer that for you. And if they do, and you let them answer that, it's like you have no identity. That's their identity of you. That's their perception of you. It's like you don't own anything. When you write, at least, and you put it out on your own, that's yours. It's got your name on it, and when you put it out, it's yours. They may say doesn't really belong to you because it's out there. And when you sell a copy, it's now the consumers. But that's what you wrote. You wrote Diamonds in the Rough, War Against the Warless, Homer, Scowl for a Mask, um, Everything is Fake. Any of the poems that I've written, the 400 plus poems I've written, and I've submitted some to no avail, but I still submit anyway because it's like
Mhm.
I want to be able to share. It's like that's just part of the thing. You just continue to write. It's like no big deal. I'll figure something out. It's just something you just got to do. That's where the self-reliance comes into play, and that's just something that most children are not really taught. And if they're taught it brutally. So it's like you just have to be in touch with that side of yourself, saying just try it on your own. If it doesn't work, don't worry. It's like most people don't try anything. At least you're doing something. So give yourself a pat on the back. And that's what I've been told by several people in the past until I realized I've got to do that on my own, which is going back to self-reliance. It's when
Mhm.
it's like I was also, when I returned to college, introduced to that, where when Professor Don Selby at CSI asked, did anyone ever read Ralph Waldo Emerson or Henry David Thoreau? Did no one raise their hand? Not one, including me. And I still gotta read them more. But you can learn that without reading a book. It's just that's the extra cushion that'll let you understand what you should really do on top of taking action.
Right, definitely, definitely. And when once you made the decision to, put yourself out there through your writing, what was that feeling like for you to take that step of faith and, put your work out there? What was that feeling like for you?
This shouldn't be too big of a deal. I mean, at least just putting something out there. It doesn't have to be the best thing ever. I mean, you're just like you're a self-published author and no one knows who you are. So you might as well just like enjoy. You don't have to do it's not like you're trying to be the next great poet. You want to have fun and you want to at the same time know who you are and let people know who you are as well. Just enjoy this. It's not a competition. It shouldn't be a competition. The community is too valuable for us to compete. We have to join forces and let everyone know that the pen is mightier than the sword, one day at a time, one open mic at a time. Whatever they do during the day, whether it's teaching, whether it's social services, whether it's working in business, whether it's working on their own business, whatever they do, that's their job. And at the end of the day, their 6 to 10 grind really begins. There's the 9 to 5, then there's the 6 to 10.
Mhm.
I kind of got that down pat, making these tour dates, just trying to get out there and repeatedly just using brand recognition, my instrument as the brand recognition. That's not always easy. And it's just trying to mix a little bit of business and art, and it's been done before. It's just for some people who may not, who still have to learn that part of the deal. It's just something that can be really useful. And I'm still
Right.
asking. I ask questions. I'll ask questions about that. I'll look for articles to read on the net
Right.
and just be able to find better ways to make myself, or I would say, useful and something that could be exciting as well, marketable, and
Right.
something good, something that would be fun for people to read and listen to.
Right. Well, you definitely touched on some good points. I'm in full agreement in I'm definitely with you in that, when you have a gift, it's all about you utilizing your gifts to your full potential. And right, and you're exactly 100% correct. It's not about competing with other people, and it's not about trying to sound like someone else. It's all about finding your own voice and doing what works for you, and in order for you to stand out. And I'm also a firm believer in being transparent through your writing, because there's a segment of people that only you can reach, And you can only do that by being transparent and being honest through your work. And I'm a firm believer in that. You know, we all have our own voice. We all have our own segment of people that we're intended to reach. You know, our work is not going to be for everybody, but it is going to be for somebody. And with that being said, what has been the reception to your writing? Like what kind of commentary have you received from your work?
I've received mostly good commentary by many of the poets you have interviewed in the past. Since I'm from Staten Island, I've
Mhm.
gotten some good support from Thomas Fugoloro, who every week says you're getting better at your writing and your reading. It's getting better. You're coming together. So those are the little things that make a big difference. It's actually a big difference for me because he's been around for so long and he's a big staple in the community. Douglas Calla, Jacob Moses, they've been together since day one, and they've given me sound advice, stuff that makes me reflect healthily on what should be done more. And Jacob's been, able to support what I've been able to do with not just writing, but just talking about how I just the soulfulness and some of the deepness and some of the personal issues I mentioned to him about not just the poems, but like stuff that's going on in my life that I add into the poetry currently, and whether it's in the past or not. Douglas, who just got accepted by Poets and Writers on the website along with the others, he has, you know, he has stuff out there by other publications, as does Jacob and Thomas, and he gave me also good advice. It's not a fool's errand to publish on your own, and many of the greats have done it in the past. That's fine too, but he's encouraged me to keep submitting and keep putting stuff out, and it's something I'm just soaking in the advice of these gentlemen as far as just taking more action and not being satisfied. Even though I'm putting out my own stuff, I want to be able to see what I can do. And it could be, I mean, I think there's the healthy competition. Submit your stuff, and everybody's submitting their stuff. What's going to get picked? If it doesn't get picked, it's just going around I would say maybe audition carousel, but that's just
Right.
part of, let's just keep doing it. You just keep going.
Right. Now let's talk about your latest project for a moment. Can you describe to our audience what that process was like for you putting that book together from start to finish?
I did, Sonnets, Fear, and Serious were sonnets and villanelles and some free verse. Some of the free verse and serious was, I guess I could have done better and elaborated more. This was something where I had to really put more detail into and take the time to edit while writing. Not many people do it, but I figured I'll just look through this and see because I wrote it for months after Sirius came out from the mid fall, right when I was in, let's say, Philadelphia and Jim Thorpe, Pennsylvania, touring. Like I would be in the bars there, writing away up until like Maryland, Pennsylvania, Massachusetts, Connecticut, and I had to I would write, turn away, and then months later I'd say, okay, this needs to be worked on. Like it's like I'm not explaining my point. Like it was still more demon, still personal stuff that I was going through that I had to continue to clean out. Like
Right.
I'm cleaning the dishes, but they're not like the way I want. They're not as clean as I want them to be, or the
Right.
house is still kind of a mess. I'm gonna get on that more. So just being more explanatory and just more emotionally available. Like most people, I would say it's braver to act and go into the deep dark feelings, and then let that stuff out more so than it is to write. But I figured I like it's better for me to communicate it through writing. So writing it down, writing everything, just like my things about how I would be. Like I would always wear a scowl on my face. Not that it was like like it was intentional, but I would write about that, and I would get like when I was younger, when I was still acting, and like you're always told not to wear like a scowl and not look so
Mhm.
scary because it's like you show like even if you show like you could be as emotionally available as you are and vulnerable, but like if you go too far, like you're a target. And if you're serious or if you have like some sort of like frozen face of like something really intense looking,
Right.
it's like you're definitely in for a long class or a long, you know, it's tough. It's tough. It's just something that's just good. It's like personal inventory. Got to work on those things, see how you feel, and then write how you feel. Personal inventory would be like a small exercise that Eric Morris would introduce to his students where they would stand on stage and they would ask themselves how they feel. It's like you're kind of going through that when you're writing, when I'm going through when I'm writing, it's like, how do I feel today? And boom, it's just going into that. I don't, I mean, I it's just, I still have some blockage I got to get out, but otherwise, this was that's some, it's not something I kind of did unconsciously, and it was really healthy for getting more out, like at least 2 to 3 pages of poem and just like riffing off how I felt and just making everything connect. And that's another thing that I would notice guys like M.A. Dennis would do, Thomas do, Jacob, Jenny Pisani, Kyoko Shimu do, most of the poets that I've read with, Douglas Calla, and a lot of the other poets in the in the New York City area.
Right. Now, are there certain subjects that you gravitate to more than others, or are you the type of writer that just essentially writes what you feel at any given moment?
I've done that too. I've done that first and foremost. I've also done things like just getting to something philosophical, more existential, just like it's like every move you're making, it's like you're responsible for that. You not write that wrong word. Well, whatever you do, you're responsible, but just like going back into my past and it's like looking at every single thing I've done. Maybe not everything, but just enough to know that okay, I did that a while back. I mean, I probably shouldn't have done that. I probably should have reacted that way. I probably should have walked away there. I probably should have said something there. It's like you know, your decisions become your family. It's like that's your bed to lay in, your pot to piss in, your pillow to lay on, your food to eat, so to speak, which is something of what I had written in the third collection.
Right, right. Excellent, excellent. Now you may have heard, the word representation thrown around in, different circles for different reasons. When it comes to you personally, in regards to your writing in general, overall, like how important is it to you to make sure that you're representing yourself in your totality through your writing, regardless of whatever subject you might be covering at any given moment? How important is it to you to make sure that when you write and when you perform your work that you're representing yourself in your totality?
100%. This is something you just gotta. It's just something that is important. Like, is this like because if someone reads this and asks, "Does this really happen to you?" So just explain more, and then you just gotta just let them know what happened. It's just something that is important to keep in mind that when you're writing and you go back to some of the tough times or some of the good times or anything in between and you recap about some of those things and you're writing and you're flowing and you're just riffing off and you're just making all these things connect and you're just coming up with and you're just segueing into from one thing to another and it's all coming together based on the one thing you write about. Authenticity is going to be looked at like, did this really happen? Did you really do this? Did this really happen to you? Like, are you just writing? Is this like a show? I mean, it could be a show, but it really happened. And the way I wrote it, it's just the way I felt because that I wish it didn't happen in the way that it did, but it did.
Right. Excellent, excellent. Now, what poets inspire you? What poets grab your attention? Do you have any favorites that stand out?
In recent weeks, I've read Native American poetry. Learning about that. I've been reading plenty of Robert Frost, and I'm getting more involved in reading them. Charles Bukowski, and I'm reading the local poets. I read, Jacob Moses's book Grimoire. I read Nika Ray's book. I forget the name of it. I think it was Curve. I saw her at an open mic. She was a feature at Jennifer Juneau's Shades of Green Phoenix Poetry open mic. It was a small chat book I read that involved Damian Rucci. He was also a feature 2 weeks after I was in the early months in the early days of April. So getting like just reading about reading from other poets and the poets of the past, just learning from them and putting those two legendary poets and the current poets that I'm getting to learn and meet and know and get to know on a personal and artistic level.
Mhm.
It's important. It's something you just got to take with you every day. And everybody's having a good time. Everybody's enjoying their time. They know that like they're regular people like me. It's just like they got their personal stuff they're trying to work out, and they're doing it on paper, and then they're doing it in front of 10 or 20 people at a bar, and that's fine. It doesn't have to be anything more like the more intimate, because New York always has intimate sets, whether it's Beacon Theater or whether it's Otto's Shrunken Head or New Rican Poets Cafe or the Richmond Hood Company or ETG Book Cafe. The intimacy is just like it's just something that's important. It's like you want to be like in a stage like 50 feet away from everybody. Although that was one case I had that experience in Boston at the Hibernian Hall. I still was able to connect. I think I felt a connection with the crowd. It's Boston, so it's like that's the town that lets you know where they are on their sleeve and pretty much everywhere else. So I
Wow.
was back in January. So just being there and learning from them, the poets that I mentioned earlier, especially the poets that I'm starting to read more of,
Mhm.
the local poets, the ones that I'm getting in touch with. Like that's more important than not just than reading the the poets that I was able to read that left their mark years back, but just trying to learn more from them and what else they did. I'm not really good. I'm not the best Shakespearean literature student. Like school was hard for me, so I'm still trying to catch up to learning more on my own. And of course, I'll ask for help if I need it. But it's like going back to school, reading books for me. I gotta ask questions. I gotta read carefully. I gotta read between the lines. Like being a student, it's like as long as you see yourself that way while putting out what you want to put out because you have something to share and something to get off your chest, as well as look at how the others did the same,
Mhm.
is paramount.
Right. Excellent. Excellent. And with that, I think that provides the perfect segue to our next segment, because now it's time, ladies and gentlemen, for Tom to take the mic. Now, Tom, at this time, I'm going to give you space to do up to 5 poems of your choosing, just to give our audience an idea of who you are and what your writing style is like. So at this time, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Noel. This is from the serious book. Owen 316 says, I just broke your neck. Owen 316, I just broke your neck. You mess with me, I'll drop you on the mat. Watch out for your head, I'm gonna spike it. From Calgary all the way to Quebec, from the Maritimes to Medicine Hat. Owen 316, I just broke your neck. When I climb into the ring, hit the deck. I'll bring you down in just 2 seconds flat. Watch out for your head. I'm gonna spike it. If you shoot with me, I'll leave you a wreck, as I'll impose my will right off the bat. 0-3-16. I just broke your neck. I'll beat your ass with a napkin, a deck of playing cards, or chair on which you sat. Watch out for your head. I'm gonna spike it. When I drop your head straight down, not one speck of you will move, whether skinny or fat. 0-3-16. I just broke your neck. Watch out for your head. I'm gonna spike it. Diamonds in the rough. While tall in stature, they're small in presence, physically seen, but nobody cares. Dressed up as yuppies, they'll work like peasants. As they're grinding away, their patience wears. While they're sneered by all of society, they roam the earth for that one special place. Their journey becomes a catastrophe with every door slammed right in their face. These diamonds in the rough must forge ahead, working jobs they hate, getting paid in scraps. Living this bleak life, they're better off dead, and with money tight, they're out playing craps. But they're hustling to stay alive each day like the rest of the world without decay. War against the warless. Armed for war, searching vulnerable prey with weaponry used to eliminate. As for those unarmed without any say, become the victim of relentless hate. Minding their own business, living free, just don't exist for people of color, where roaming the land comes with a steep fee as soldiers of the street come to hover over those who strive only to survive, as it seems to be the recurring theme, where no one of the like may ever thrive. So much for the great American dream. As time goes on, this life becomes the norm for those who endure this ongoing storm. Scowl for a mask. A scowl is nothing more than a mask covering my fear from this haunted universe. I don't want anyone to know how afraid I am, so I fight instead of flight, sometimes without even fighting. It doesn't mean that I'm angry, but it's a shield to keep the vultures at bay so I can keep the peace in my heart. Only should I try to spread, it will make me even easier prey. Sometimes, though, I act as if I'm angry, even if I'm not, and I even yell to ensure that it's just an act. But is it? As for the scowl, it's my shield, while the worlds I howl are my swords, knives, and daggers. As I wrinkle my forehead, showing off my piercing stare, my heart is beating faster than I can get out of dodge from those very vultures. That's me putting up my shield with my sword cocked behind me, ready to strike. Bottom line is, get out before I have to run while going through bodies chasing me into the night and escape what death has in store for me with little time I have until I die in vain, which is even a minor jab at my dignity, all because I have to pass by the hallway just to get to class or make it through the day without anyone saying anything to me, good or bad. Even a death stare can't make the Reaper run away from trying to kill me. And even if I fight back, it's time to start digging for a place to sleep. All these pairs of eyes, regardless of how many people are watching me, whispering a giggle or even whispering a profanity. Meanwhile, my face is mad, but my insides are ridden with fear and doom, even when I look like death itself walking down the hallway of dark jocularity. And finally, start living or keep dying. Wondering can be too much because sometimes there's nothing else to do, thanks to just simple laying back, dropping your guard, letting the world live so you can do the same is the rocket fuel that's behind the wondering. Sitting alone on your bed while the radio's on, but your curiosity and wildest dreams are louder than anything you'll listen to at the highest volume goes to show that you're already dreaming of a better world, that only you want to create and make everyone around you surrender to it. That's a thought coming from not getting any or enough attention or mapping out a plan to take over the world, where only you can hear your own world blast off while the world you live in has become a blasted, beaten down universe flooded with problems that either get better or get worse. While you're dreaming, and even if you start doing, it's going to get worse and better. Problem is, your world will be worse if you don't change it while it's getting better, or maybe it's getting better while you're getting worse. Find a fellow misanthrope to wallow to and dream together on how you think you can change what you can't even control or sometimes even see. Dance furiously into the fire, moonwalk onto the sun, do an Irish jig on tightropes, and break dance into the sky together. But most of all, rest in peace, knowing you did all those things and enjoyed each second of cementing your legacy as an oddity, but a talented one at that.
Oh, wow, wow. Excellent, excellent. Ladies and gentlemen, those were original poetry selections by Mr. Tom Cintula. Tom, awesome work, awesome work. Thank you so much for sharing tonight. That was excellent.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, at this time, we're going to shift into the next segment, which is our Q&A session. Now, at this time, if there's anyone in our online audience that has a question or comment for Tom, you can unmute yourself and give your question or comment at this time. Don't be shy, y'all. Don't be shy. Don't be shy. Well, I can actually start it off. If you could collaborate with any poet, living or deceased, who would it be and why?
I would definitely like to take the time to learn from any of the Staten Island poets, maybe Jacob or Thomas Douglas. I'd like to do something with Damien Rucci, maybe go on the road and maybe write something with him and Scott Ladotti. Also read Play the Devil, his novel. It was in the novel. That was also good to read. It was exciting. It's just something like he's somebody that writes something that, it's a story about a bunch of nobodies just aimlessly going through life. And that's like something I kind of deal with on my own. So maybe it's like maybe we can write something like that and just like do a cross country thing or like an East Coast or Midwest thing or Southeast thing and do something with that, write together about that. And like I kind of have something more like I feel like I have an epic feel with my work, and I always see that Whitman's stuff. And I'm still learning more about like how like epic and operatic and like there's just something grandiose about him and like the way he brings out like when I read what he writes, it's like I see something epic coming out of it, like something big, like something's like just a lot of action in the scenery in which I imagine as I read it. So
Right.
that would be cool too. Bukowski, he's like the one of the working class stiff heroes that just writes about it just has like this bitterness that I kind of have festered inside that I'm trying to continue to throw out on paper. Like it's okay to be upset, just get that out of your system. And like I would see some people telling me not to do that, not to be bitter, but it's like sometimes you just got to get that. It's like that's the big dump you have to take for you before you move on. So it's like I'm trying to like really not be uncensored, but just be like even 200% more honest with what I write. And that's just something, as you mentioned earlier, about, like representation. It's just just totality and the universality we have that we deal with that there's this fickle world. Life's not fair. We all know we all know we're not gonna get what we want. You don't always get what you want, and that's why there's something called the prestigious 1% Club, and then there's the rest of us. I've written some things about that, and other social issues, and I wouldn't consider myself the most socially conscious person, but I just know that these simple things are just like a spark plug to like what I witnessed over the years of experience, even in my local area, as opposed to what's going on out there right now, everywhere else. So that's important too. Even if it's not, even if you're not like, even if you're not someone that's like protesting, again, pen's mightier than the sword. You can write, you can write how you feel. You can still have certain injustices within you, and then that'll help you look at everybody else that's going through the same stuff you're going through. Some bigger, some that are worse, some that are not as bad as yours or better than yours, but it just gives you that world view once you look inside yourself and everyone else says, I know how you feel.
All right, definitely, definitely. Now that last poem that you shared, can you share with our audience what the inspiration was for that poem?
Start living or keep dying is something that I wrote because I was at a point where before I started writing poetry and just like aimlessly writing just to get stuff off my chest and figure out what I'm going to do with the work I write just for the heck of it. It's like I was like I didn't know what it's like I was trying to find other things to do with myself. I There are so many things I did aspire to do, but failed at doing. Even though I did fail, I still did it. So it's like I shouldn't stop now, even if it's like I don't have to be anything extra special. It's just like just what we're taught. Even though we think we could be special because of it's just like a trauma response of what we go through that says I'm going to shove this person's words up his butt or her butt, and I'm going to make something of myself. You only to find out that it's like you're like the rest of the group, and you're still not where you want to be. So it's like that should not be a problem. Just live anyway, because even if you're still having a hard time with certain things, just find ways to move past that and live. Just start living. Don't worry about like, okay, you got bills to pay, you got mouths to feed, you got bosses to deal with, you got people you're arguing with and fighting with, you got personal issues, depressions like depression, anxiety, uh you're just trying to meet the right person that can talk to you about what you're going through and trying to find a little compassion in just a tough world that's being told, you know, that life is tough, and we know that already. We already know that. Like, give us something else now, because
Mhm.
we're going to show you how tough we are back. Because we know it already. We listened to you long enough, so now you're going to listen to us and tell you and show, and so you know how tougher we are. And it's just something we're just like it's just us. It's just that combat that we're dealing with. It's hard. It's hard. I don't like, and I just don't like. I don't always like to. I don't always like to do that, but it's like sometimes you just have no choice. So just keep start living or keep dying. It's like a fight. You're fighting to live, to do something different, to do something fun, like go canoeing, um, visit another country, um, meet new people,
Mhm.
learn a new language, uh, talk with the family member you haven't talked to in months, and like straighten certain things out. Like do things that you should be doing instead of just letting your mind go to mush and like worrying about stupid ads about like how you should be doing this, but you should be working on basic living, breathing. Like you want to be a good American, contribute to your community.
Right.
Take the time to help other people. Like everybody wants to just take stuff that they want and they consider that living. Like take what you got to get. Like don't let the other guy get it first. Like that's what we were taught as children. Like you're white and you're in America. You got to take it now. That's not the case. No, that just doesn't fly anymore.
All right, and that's definitely a good perspective to have overall. And in the chat, Will C says, Will C's commended you for your great delivery, and he also says you have a great knowledge of your fellow local poets and speak greatly about them. Would you ever try to MC your own event?
I was working on doing something with my brother-in-law, who's who has a local comic book shop in Staten Island, JHU Comics. He's been working for that company for almost 4 decades. We're trying to get something done, but he's currently working right now and trying to improve the quality of his store. So nothing has come to fruition yet. Eventually, somewhere down the road, I think I see myself doing an event here and there, but it's just open mics and maybe a couple more features. I came off a feature in March with Jennifer Juneau's Shades of Green, Phoenix Poetry. So maybe I'll get another feature somewhere down the road. It's just continuously just focusing on being in the local area, and eventually I'll branch out and go back to New England or the Mid-Atlantic and maybe further. But right now it's just staying in the local area and just continuing to connect with others.
Okay, excellent. That's excellent. And he also asking, what's your favorite venue that you've read at?
I like New York. I've done it plenty of times. Last June on the 29th, I did it and it was awesome. It's cultural. There's a lot of good vibes. There's not just versatile poets that are able to put in their own slant on what they've been through like I have, but it's just multicultural, and you got all people from all parts of the world that come there. You've got one person that I met from Florida who used to live in the Czech Republic and did some poetry there as well. And you got a lot of people from the Lower East Side. Parkside, I like New York best. I like to get out there a little more, but I've done the Parkside Lounge. I do that every Sunday. Great Weather for Media. I go out there. I'm starting to go out there more. I've done some inspired word with Mike Effner back about a year ago. I'd like to go back there again soon. There's the Hop Shop on Staten Island. There's Richmond Hood Company. I'm going to Puffin Words this Friday. Can't wait. And I used to go to Cargo for open mics with Nancy and Phoebe. I'll be going there to Northside Coffee after Fundraisers, which is a public access show on CTV in Staten Island, hosted by Seth Reefer. So then on the 25th, it's Parkside and Hop Shop on Sunday, another double header. So I've found a way to tend to do double headers, like two for the price of one. 2 shows one day, one in the afternoon, one in the evening. I've done it. I'd like to do a triple header. A couple of people may have done, maybe Fukuloro has done 1 or 2 of triple headers. Otherwise, it's just the price. Like if I got enough in the tank and I can just balance out my schedule, maybe I can do 3, because I'm always being told, rest. You got to rest, Tom. You may not be like making money doing this, but I know you like it, Tom, but take the time to take care of yourself.
Right. Excellent. Thank you, Will C, for those questions. As we close, can you share with our audience where you can be found on social media?
You can find me on Instagram at Cintula Tom, Facebook at Tom Cintula, and at TA Cintula on YouTube. I rarely go on BandLab, but if you want to check that out, it's at TC Poet Writer, TCPOETWRITER. So those are my outlets. I'm looking to expand a couple more outlets, but it's just trying to keep up with social media. I used to, there's some people that say do Twitter, do TikTok, do Snapchat. It's like I'm trying to make it simple, but at the same time get followers, which I've gradually done over the last couple of months. So all is good.
Okay, excellent. Now, as we close out, there's just one more thing that I need to do as I share my screen, and that's to say thank you. First and foremost, Tom, thank you so much for coming through. Great conversation, great poetry. Wish you all the best in your current projects as well as your future endeavors. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen, for the next and last episode of season 2 before summer break, coming up on Monday, June 26th at 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be interviewing rapper Rich Vision, who is celebrating the release of his newest single called Break the Stigma. If you haven't already, you can connect with Poets with Purpose on Facebook through the Facebook group Poets with Purpose, on Twitter @PoetsWPurpose, YouTube channel of the same name. I can also be found on Clubhouse @The Anointed Pen. For more information about Poets with Purpose and the PWP sessions, you can call me at 646-372-6230 or email poetswithpurpose@gmail.com. All of my logos and flyers were designed by the great team at Eclipse Graphics. You can find them on Instagram @Eclipse Graphics NY. And lastly, for those of you that would like to make a donation, you can do so through PayPal, Tap Media Man, Cash App, $Anointed Pen, or through Zelle, utilizing my phone number. And that, ladies and gentlemen, is a wrap for episode 21. Now, this episode will be uploaded to the Poets with Purpose YouTube channel within the next hour or so be on the lookout for that. Thank you, Tom, for coming through. Thank you to my audience. Thank you all so much for your support. Have a good night and God bless. Thank you.
Thank you.